Yeah.
But so on to our last topic, and this is kind of a big one. This is going to cover both the sports because we had two teams reach both the championship in their respective sports. The Patriots in theirs, they ended up winning their Super Bowl. And then you have Golden State, who literally had every break for them go wrong.
And
Like
almost
they
won.
would be champions right now. There's no way that Raptors team wins if KD doesn't go down and Clay. Even if it was just KD that went down, they were looking like they were still gonna lose,
Yeah.
or the Raptors would lose.
Just
Clay came
Kawhi
back and
went
was just like Clay
Super
came back and
Saiyan.
was yeah right. He just went nuts. But then if Clay doesn't go down, the thing is Steph in the playoffs, he's good, but he's not great. He's not
He
that
falls
guy.
off.
He's over. I think when he took that last shot in game what was it 6
I'm not
the last
sure.
game
Yeah.
the last game of the series he took a shot. He was 0 for 7 with under 8 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, man.
He's 0 for 8 now.
Yeah, he's over it now.
Like
I watched the Warriors in the playoffs for the last few years, and I also watched them during the regular season the last few years, mainly 5 years or 4 to 5 years ago, is where I mainly watched their stretch. And Steph in the regular season is insane, but then it gets to the playoffs, and he just I don't know what it is, but there's a transition where he just kind of
he
burns.
plays up to his height at that point. Short.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
the real question with these two teams are because we've seen dynasties. The Warriors football is a little different of a dynasty because of who we're talking about. The Patriots. We'll talk about them last because that's a whole different conversation
Yeah.
in dynasty like scenario. But now you got the Warriors. We talked about last week Draymond's contract extension, and I think that hurts them in this.
I
But
do
is
too.
their dynasty over? Because now they signed certain people. They're trying to salvage what they had last year. KD's gone.
Yeah.
Clay's going to be injured all year. Will he still be the same when he comes back? That's another question. Then they lose their bench. They lost Iggy. So the core players for that team was Iggy, Clay, Steph, Dre.
Yeah.
Being Draymond Green. That being their core, and they built around that. Now they're missing Iggy, Clay, and will Steph live up to MVP hype? Like there's so many questions regarding this team and where will they be come playoff time and where will they end up? Will they be going home or will they going to another championship? So I want to know what your guys' opinion is on whether or not they're a dynasty still. Is their dynasty falling off? Is it over? Is it gonna have a chance to keep going? What's happening?
Go ahead, go.
Um, I don't think it's over necessarily. I think that next year, a really good chance for Steph to be like, all right, if I can make this team back into what they can be, I can cement myself as like one of the best point guards ever. So, I don't know. I don't think it's over. I still think they're obviously still one of the best teams in the league because they're just so stacked everywhere. Didn't they also lose DeMarcus Cousins? Didn't he go to the Lakers or
Yeah,
something?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, he wasn't doing a ton because he was always injured, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's over, but I think they're at risk to lose it because of how much better the rest of the league has gotten in the offseason, just a free agency. So I don't think it's over yet, though.
Okay. Personally, I think Steph, when you were mentioning, when the Warriors were on their insane run stretch and they were winning everything without Kevin Durant. I think Steph, when Kevin Durant came to that team, he had to he realized he had to take a step back, and Kevin Durant is a better player than Steph, and no one disagrees on that. But and it kind of made Steph have to take a step back from his double MVP form, back-to-back MVPs, and kind of basically be like the second best player right next to KD. And I think with him gone, and not the same core, but very close to the same core, with Clay, we're not sure what's going to happen, how he'll be when he comes back, and Draymond's contract getting done, established. You have Steph, and he's going to be looking at the team. I think now he's like, okay, this is my team again. I control this. Clay's not here to be even my real sidekick. We're not quite sure how long he'll be out for, blah, blah, blah. We're not sure if he'll even be great when he comes back again. But he's going to have to basically take over the game as he did in his back-to-back MVP years and just control everything. And if he can do that, if he can do as insane as we know he's possible, which I don't think he can personally. I think those 2 years were insane, and what he did was insane during those 2 years. But he also had everything going right for him. His team was basically feeding him the ball pretty much because he was doing so well. And Clay wasn't known as this insane shooter who's insanely good as he is now. And sometimes Clay's was even better shooting than Steph was in the past few years when KD was on the team. So given that, and given, as you guys mentioned, the East and the West getting much, much better than when the Warriors were dominating it, I think personally you're going to have to look at it and say, you got to look at it from a standpoint of they just have harder competition, and Steph's going to have to try even harder than he did before, even when he was in his back-to-back MVP form. So you look at that, you look at how much better the teams are getting, although to me, it kind of feels like every year a team becomes relevant and then drops out. The only team that's kind of stayed relevant these past few years is probably the Warriors, if we're being honest. The only team that's stayed majorly relevant, besides when Cleveland had LeBron, is the Warriors. And in considering that and the money that they make every year, they'll have the ability to purchase in new trades, do new draft picks, get people in that they need because they just make so much money every year. But I think this will be the last year. Personally, I think this is the last year of their dynasty. And unless Steph just has a baller here like he's been known to do in the past, I think this is it. And I think they fall off a bit because although they have some great talent, I don't see them being able to even maybe I don't remember exactly where I put them. I think I have them in the playoffs. I don't know how far I have them going into the playoffs, but I don't think they go back to another final. At least not from here on out. Unless they sign some big name player in the offseason next year, then maybe.
Just fine.
Okay, I mean, I get that. Can you guys still hear me? I'm just checking.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, I think the reason I say I think it's over, it's not because of Steph's falling off or anything. I think Steph's still a good player. I think because of how well he and Clay shoot, it will keep them relevant. But just because you shoot well doesn't mean you'll perform in the playoffs.
Yeah.
A dynasty means you're there winning championships consistently. Their dynasty started in 2015, right? When they won their first one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It had a chink in the armor when they lost to LeBron after losing, was it 3 straight? Yeah.
Yeah, they're up
Oof.
3-1.
Up 3-1, the only time in NBA history that's happened.
Yeah.
That's a big chink in their dynasty, but it came back and they won the next 2 years. And then they lost last year.
Right.
Which being the 2019 championship. But even then, it's just because literally things did not go their way. The basketball gods were not on their side.
True.
Now, after that, their team was stacked. You had KD. This was your starting lineup, basically. You had Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond, Boogie. You tell me that 5 isn't beating everybody if they're healthy.
It's insane, but if they have to be healthy.
Yeah. But that's my point.
Yeah.
KD went down. Boogie was playing okay. He wasn't great. He was still kind of hurt.
Right.
Clay got hurt. That was it. When those 3 went down, that was it. That was literally a dynasty falling apart. Because what happens from here? You'll see Clay come back. Granted, I don't think Clay's going to drop off. If he does, it'll be literally slightly. It will not be anything else.
He's not running around the court.
True. But even then, you're losing KD, which made you unbeatable. You're losing Boogie, who just a nice piece to add. Make sure nobody else really had him in all reality.
Yeah.
Why bring him in? Just so nobody else can have him. We're that good. We're those guys.
We're that rich. We're
Because
that
we
rich.
can.
Because we can.
Exactly. But look at their bench. They bring in who? They bring on Russell.
Who could be a starter anywhere.
Yeah, he could start probably. Well, I mean,
almost anywhere.
Yeah, almost anywhere. I'll give you that. But that kind of thing, if you got to bring that in, I'm gonna show you the Golden State. I'm gonna read you the list of players on their roster right now. Well, this is last year's roster, which I'm pretty sure is Looney gone. I know Cook's gone.
I'm not entirely sure who they actually traded off.
Here, let's see. Maybe they have an updated roster here.
But
Here's their updated roster. They got Andrew Bogut, Willie Cauley-Stein, who, in my opinion, is not that great. He's just a big glass He's a big glass cleaner.
yeah,
Like, that's all he is. Alec Burks, Steph, Dre, Jonas Jerebko, Damian Lee, Sean Livingston, Kevin Looney's still there, Glenn Robinson III, D'Angelo Russell, and Clay. Like, those are their only significant players.
right.
These guys, so either Bogut's coming off the bench or Stein's coming off the bench. And even then, Karl Anthony Towns is going to tear that man up. Either of them.
Either one.
People like that are going to tear this team up inside. If their guards are good enough, they can lock them down. Like this year, this is the reason we say this year is like the most open ever, because they call it like this is the year of the duo, right?
Yeah.
Because Clay's kind of hurt. I mean, once he comes back, they'll be the only trio still, only big three.
Right.
But you can't tell me Kawhi and Paul George aren't going to step up on Clay and Curry when they come in.
Yeah, I mean, I think even
So
with
who's
Clay, like,
yeah, who's going to come back? Who's going to be that guy to just step up for the Warriors? Because Draymond's not consistent offensively. Draymond's going to lock down on defense. Like, I'm not worried about that.
yeah.
They're not going to be as offensively horrifying anymore.
See,
that's what they need to be.
That's exactly why I'm thinking it's going to go off, is because now with all these teams having all these big men together, like these small forwards, these power forwards who are insanely good, right?
They can guard all five.
And can guard all five positions. The Warriors' biggest struggle, if you look at it, when had all their prime players all healthy, their biggest struggle has always been against teams with power forwards, insanely good small forwards, insanely good power forwards. LeBron,
like guys that could shoot.
Exactly,
or
guys
play
that can
inside.
shoot or play very well inside. That's always been their biggest struggles, because they don't have necessarily the best center, their best power forward, the best small forward. That's not their strength, right? And so that's why I think they're going to get chopped up in the playoffs by these teams who are on these insane duels, the Lakers, the Clippers, all these insane teams that gathered all these dual players who are just kind of big men playing, who can shoot, playing inside, playing defense, playing offense. And I think that's what's going to chew them up the most, is they're going to have this issue that they have run into in the past years when they've been so dominant.
Mm-hmm. The stretch bigs are going to be killing them, I think.
Yeah.
Like, Bogut and Cauley-Stein are not going to be the guys guarding. Like, Bogut can shoot threes. Who's going to step out and guard him as or Karl Anthony Towns or Joel Embiid? Like, these guys are all 7-footers who are shooting threes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's going to guard, Giannis? Like,
if Giannis gets his shooting down, like, seriously, who's going to step up?
If he can figure out how to shoot a three, who is going to actually...
Well, yeah, we'll figure that out next season if he can.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's the Warriors' biggest problem, it has been in the past. And now that it's like that's the huge prevalence that it is in this year's NBA, and how much the NBA has kind of changed because of that this year, that's like their biggest weakness is being like put on full display this year. And if they get to the playoffs, which I think they will, because they'll be good enough to make the playoffs for sure. I don't see them doing very well in it, because their biggest weakness will be against every single team pretty much in the playoffs.
Who do you guys have winning the West? What do you guys think?
All right. So last time, like, I feel like I was drunk because I said, well, and here's another reason I'm gonna change my pick now, because I said I could before season starts.
Right.
I said the Trailblazers, but that was before I realized Damian was into as much rap as he is. I'm not saying rap's bad. I'm saying, like, he's more focused on his mixtape than he is his basketball career.
So mean.
Huh?
So mean.
I know, right? Dude, no,
Maybe he's
if I'm a
fire
basketball,
rapper.
I mean, he might be. Apparently his album's pretty good. I haven't heard it yet. But that's my thing. I thought, like, because he talks like such a mad game. Like,
yeah, he does.
He always said, like, look, I'm staying here. We're going to win. We don't need a big three. We can do it. I said, that's the fire I like to hear. But then he's like, nah, fam, I'm going to go work on my music career while playing NBA basketball. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I was like, I had faith. I dropped it within like 3 days after hearing that.
Distractions, man. Every single time that ruins the best players.
I mean, he'll still be good. But after hearing that, I'm a little worried. So I'm going to change it. I am going to say that I'm actually going to pick the Clippers, just because I saw what they were last year. Adding Kawhi and PG is huge, and I really think like their teams, it's not stacked, but it's a good team That's what we saw with
Right.
Toronto. It's a good team that can make the finals.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that part. Although, see, me and Cole constantly disagree on this when we talk in private about the NBA and who goes where,
boy.
and especially this year, where
What
we
is
would
it?
disagree.
Because
But
he thinks the Lakers are gonna lose.
I think the Lakers are not.
No.
I mentioned this. I mentioned this in the podcast. I mentioned this. Like, I think it was last week, where I specifically said I do not think the Lakers are going to be as good as everyone thinks they will be. Right? Because I mentioned this last week. I for proof, you can go back and watch it and listen. And I mentioned it. I don't think the Lakers are going to be anywhere near as good as they actually are believed to be. But I believe I have the I can't remember who I have in the finals,
I
but
think
it
you
might
said
be
the Rockets.
it's either the Rockets or the I think it might be the Rockets are going to be my team to go to the finals from the West, because I think the firepower with Russell Westbrook, at as insane as he has been the past few years, even if he's just a ball hog, with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, who we all know what he can do anyway. As long as he learns, he has to play defense on every occasion,
Possession.
every possession, every possession. He has to play some defense. That team just on point, given how many points they put up in the past few years, even without Russell Westbrook, and you look at them last year, they were still one of the top. I believe they're one of the top leading scorers across the league, right? I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure they have in the last few years. With all the defense that is like with all the firepower on offense, I think the West is going to be centered around high-powered offenses. And so, as good as the defense can be on some of the teams, I don't think they'll be able to stop Russell Westbrook and James Harden. That's why I think once they get into the playoffs, as long as they can keep what they do in the regular season up in the playoffs and they don't fall off dramatically, I still have the Rockets going through.
And then I'm assuming, Cole, you have the Lakers.
I have not been able to make my mind up about who's gonna win the West, because I feel like the Clippers are gonna have really good team chemistry just because they wanted to play with each other. And I don't know about the Rockets because, they've played together. James Harden and Westbrook have played together
But that was
before.
before they're both MVP caliber players.
I know
Yeah.
they've changed their games a lot since then, especially Harden taken a much bigger role in his teams.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that dynamic is gonna work, because it's just two super ball dominant players are now just being shoved back together.
Yeah, that's my concern.
I
guess
see
my
that.
pick would probably have to go to the Clippers, though, just because I just think though you're gonna have extremely good chemistry for some reason.
I'm telling you
They
guys,
just wanted to play with each other.
the teams in LA are not going to be as good as everyone thinks there is. And there's one reason I'm putting this. I haven't really said it, but there's one main reason is because when you put all that talent onto both of those teams, especially the Clippers, the Clippers look insane, right? Kawhi's considered to be the best player in the league right now, right? By most, most critics, not saying you guys, but most critics are saying he's the best player in the league right now. For some people say LeBron.
Probably is the best. He has the most well-rounded game.
That is true.
In a general sense, he's a better shooter than LeBron in some ways, I think, and maybe not as good defensively, but that's besides the point.
Wait, what?
He's better defensively than LeBron.
You guys think he's better defensively?
He has 2 defensive player of the year awards.
Oh,
LeBron doesn't play D, bro.
Well, okay, so he's not as good in the paint as LeBron is. Then let's put it that
that's
way.
true.
All right.
So, you look at the Clippers and you get Kawhi, who's an insane player. He just carried the Raptors to a championship by going basically to a level we've almost never seen before. Kind of like when Steph was doing so insane back-to-back years, right? Almost to that type of level of play. And he carried the Raptors to a championship. And I just don't see him being, because when he was on a team that had so many good players, when he was on the Spurs, he wasn't that kind of highlight play. He wasn't making those type of plays that he was on the Raptors. You look at him, he was kind of your average star player, right? He wasn't doing something insane every game.
I don't know about that, because when you've got 4 Hall of Famers on a team,
well, that's what
makes
I'm saying.
it kind of hard.
I know.
So I think that's why we didn't hear about him and see him as much, is because you still had TP, you had Manu, you had Tim Duncan, you had all these guys.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. You put him on a team with all these star players on the Clippers, and
he's only got Paul George.
I know, but the Clippers weren't I get they were kind of a joke of the West the past few years, but they are getting. I think they're a little bit better now.
They're significantly
better, and they have they don't have a terrible other 3 starters. They don't have a terrible bench, I don't think.
No, their bench is one of the best in the league right now.
Exactly. So I think you put him with Paul George, and while Paul George is insane, Obviously, he's a great player.
He's second best two-way player.
I think he is going to have.
It's Anthony Davis.
Oh my god. But I think just looking at the Clippers, I think he's going to have the same problem he ran into on the Spurs, where he's not going to be the same highlight player he was as the Raptors came, where he was just carrying a team like that. And when he doesn't carry a team, I think he's going to have the same problem he had on the Spurs, where he just can't do much when it counts. Because he's going to have to. Who's going to get that last shot? Who's going to be the final
How
shooter?
did he not do anything when it counted?
Because
he won Finals MVP. He won Finals MVP with 4 Hall of Famers.
I know, but what I'm saying is when he was on the Spurs, the last few years he was on the Spurs, he was not he wasn't doing what he did on the Raptors, right? Last year when he was on the Raptors, he was carrying that team. He was the one dude you consistently count on to play insane every single game. He didn't need to do that on the Spurs, and he wasn't doing that. He's not going to need to be that on the Clippers either. So will he play as good as he did on the Raptors? Now that he's on the Clippers, because he doesn't have to play that way anymore?
No, he
has
to.
Paul George.
Now the spotlight's on him. Paul George is sidekick.
I don't know, because that leads to the question. That leads me to a question. Do you think Kawhi would be you always got to ask, who's the guy who takes the game-winning shot, right?
It's Kawhi. I don't know,
because
Paul George knows that.
Dude, Paul George comes up so small.
I don't know. I disagree.
The only time because Paul George was still the number 2 in Oklahoma City, and yet he still put up incredible numbers. Like, he still topped all of his numbers in his last year in OKC.
Yeah,
even though Westbrook was still the guy.
Yeah. Okay, but
he knows his role.
I understand. I understand that, but I always think there's going to be like that mental block where you think when you have somebody. Kawhi didn't really have like that same type of caliber player as Paul George.
I think I know what you're saying.
I just think there's going to be this like transition period where he would just went to the Raptors, balled out of his mind, led them to a championship, and he didn't have someone of Paul George's status caliber on his team where he was like right there, right neck and neck, almost tied with Kawhi Leonard in talent. Because sometimes Paul George is just as good as Kawhi is.
Occasionally, it's not very often, but I think I know what you're saying in the sense of like, will he revert back to like how he played in San Antonio, knowing that he doesn't have to carry the team on his back?
Yes,
I mean,
that's pretty much what I'm saying.
I mean, the thing is though, he went there knowing it's his team. That's what the whole conference was like before he was like deciding between the Raptors, Clippers, and Lakers, which apparently like the Raptors weren't even like in the hunt really. He's like, I don't want to be here.
He didn't like Toronto.
It's not. I mean,
cold.
It's not that who likes Toronto.
It's cold and Drake is annoying.
It's cold.
Okay.
Oof.
No, so it's like think about it this way. It's like when you're in Toronto, you got to be going back and forth through customs. You got to fly into the country. You got to fly out. You got to drive in, drive out. Blah blah blah. Like, and it's like it's just a task. It's tasking, I guess, that's what some reporters said for him. It's like he doesn't like that, and I get that. But now when he was deciding, the only reason he said he wants somebody to go with him because he knows he's not winning another championship by himself. Yeah. He knows he got lucky.
Okay.
So why? He's bringing in Paul George. Why? So he can have some help. He knows he's going to be the guy. He says, I need a sidekick. And that's what the owner, I can't remember his name right now. It's completely slipping my mind. The Clippers owner.
Right.
He goes up and says, we'll get you somebody as long as you come. And he says, you get somebody first, I'm on my way. And then they got Paul George. End of story. He said, I need a sidekick. He understands that
they chose to play together.
Yeah. I just think that sure, they chose it. That's what he wanted. They gave him that option. I think that the only time I've seen Kawhi Leonard with other players of his caliber or even someone near his caliber, he hasn't done what he did to get to win a finals like what he did with the Raptors. He wasn't the star of the show. He wasn't the guy carrying the team on his back. He wasn't doing that on the Spurs. He didn't have to do that on the Spurs. And when he doesn't have to do it, I haven't seen the same Kawhi we saw on the Raptors. I haven't seen that player who just goes full Super Saiyan mode on everyone he plays. And I just don't know. I know everyone's so hyped about the Clippers, especially because they think they're going to go to the finals and they're going to have an insane team and blah, 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 blah. But I just don't see him doing, again, maybe it's because he just doesn't need to. And they'll just be so dominant that he won't even need to do that. But if he does do that, I think they easily get to the finals. Because they will have to. But if he doesn't, since he doesn't have to, I think he reverts back a little. And I think we see this team where it's like, it's Kawhi, but it's not the same Kawhi we saw last year. And I don't know what we'll get from him.
So we got like, well, we didn't really get off topic. We can start talking about, because Warriors dynasty, is it over? Who's
Right,
winning the
yeah.
championship? Blah blah blah. No, I mean, it kind of all falls in because the Warriors aren't beating, in my opinion, the Lakers. They aren't beating the Clippers. I don't think that'll happen if they see each other in the playoffs.
I think the Nuggets could just
That's what
totally
I was
surprisingly just win the just cause
Just destroy
just because
everybody.
the world is chaos. They could
I
just be
had
like, now we're winning it.
that's what I had as my number 1 seed actually.
You did,
in,
yeah. But
in
I
the
don't
West.
think. I still think their playoff inexperience is going to kill them in that sense.
Yeah.
So I don't
Okay.
think it'll. But we have two. We have two for the Warriors dynasty that has a possibility of moving on, and then I say it's over.
I say
So-
I say this is like, if Steph does it, if Steph reverts back to his insane form, I think it continues for maybe one more year,
Another year or two.
depending on what they do in the free agency. But if he doesn't, I think it's done. I don't think they'll do enough in free agency, and I don't think he'll revert back enough.
Okay.
They're at
and then-
DEFCON 5.
this is like the red warning light
Like,
should be
look,
going off.
we
Like,
are at
hey,
the
hey,
last
hey!
one.